Hi, welcome back to my channel. If it's the first time you've come across this Les the Chef guy, this is he. I am the I can't say I'm the guy because, as you can see, I'm not quite the guy, but I am the chef. Yeah, there's not really that much else to say, except just if you're wondering who I am, Google it. Honestly, I always get asked, so who is Lesego and who is Les the Chef? And I never truly know how to answer that. Honest to God, I never. Even in my book, I explain in the first section, chefs don't like talking about themselves. Okay, let me not say chefs. Most chefs, not all of them, don't like talking about themselves. We like our talent to speak for itself. And that is why we don't make good TV hosts. Which takes me to the very first question. This is my 10 questions to Les the Chef. I was meant to do it every week, and I was being very ambitious. You know, when you start a YouTube channel, you get hit by excitement. I mean, you've bought all this expensive equipment. I keep threatening to show you the background to all of this. One day I'll go into the tripod that is here to my left, the artificial lighting that is here to my right, the tripod this camera is sitting on, the zoom lens, all of the stuff, the microphone, the tripod, and the types of tripods. I'll get into that one day. So at the beginning, when you start a channel, you get all excited. You're like, yay, yo, I've got the stuff. And you record every single thing. And then you reality hits and you start to realize, yo, and like, for me to record a recipe video, for example, takes about 3 days of planning. And that's not 3 days of cooking. The 3 days is simply planning. The cooking will take, an hour or 2 hours? That is quick. But then it's the editing of that as well afterwards. It's the piecing together. You have to work out what you've put in, the ingredients, and whether what you've said the ingredients were on your recipe are exactly what you put in that video shoot. Because you want to say, add a cup of milk. Now the thing is with online people, they study everything, every single image. And in your recipe you said add a cup of milk, but then they see you putting 1.5 cups of milk. And you're going to get hit by comments in the comment section or emails or inboxes, and people take cooking very, very seriously. Hence me not being able to always post recipes all the time. It's easier to blog recipes, it's easier to type them up on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social medias. But for YouTube, it's a whole other thing. Even the videos themselves, the editing of the videos. But we're going to get into that one day. I'm going to break it all down as to how you do a food YouTube channel. As I was saying at the beginning, I said 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes, man. I said at the beginning of the YouTube channel, I would post a 10-question clip every week where people ask me 10 questions and I'll answer them. But then it turns out that human beings are just human beings. When you tell them, ask me 10 questions, no one will ask you the questions. As soon as you say, stop asking me questions, 1 million people ask you questions. That's just how Murphy's Law and humans are. So people have held back from asking me questions, but then I've been collecting them over time. As time goes, I've been writing them down, and so it will happen when the 10 questions that I think are relevant have reached number 10, and then I'll answer them like I'm doing today. Okay, as I was saying in the beginning, TV show, and why chefs do not make good TV hosts. I don't know how many TV productions have asked me to come and audition, or have asked me to come do a screen test, or have asked me to come and speak into a camera so they can see if I am natural in front of the camera. And the thing is, I am natural in front of the camera. I can do anything in front of the camera. I don't even need to be coached how. I don't need to be taught how to speak into one. But my problem, and a lot of chefs' problem, is that we take our industry very, very seriously. We take food very seriously. And a lot of chefs are food nerds. I mean, I am a food nerd through and through. So if you say to me, I've made the souffle, I'm not going to say, ooh, wow, beautiful souffle. I wonder what it tastes like. Mm-hmm. No, I'm going to go and tell you the technicalities of a souffle, what I'm looking for when I'm eating a souffle, and why your souffle is not a good souffle. I'm going to, and that is the problem with the chef when it comes to a food show. We have so much nonsense and knowledge in our heads that to simplify it and switch it off for a TV show is not, I won't say it's not possible, but it's not that easy. And so why only very few qualified and experienced chefs actually get onto TV. The Marco Pierre Whites, the Anthony Bourdains of the world, the Gordon Ramsays, is because they have found a way of either they were lucky enough to find an audience that wanted that kind of nerdish intelligence, or they found a producer who understood their personality. And in South Africa, I've come to find that a lot of producers do not understand a chef's personality. And when people always ask me, why don't you have a TV show? I always tell them I go to these auditions not because I want to be on TV, but because I want to see if someone can actually figure out how to channel that personality of a qualified and experienced chef into a South African cooking show. Because South African cooking shows are more about entertainment. They're more about the person having a certain quirk that will get people coming back to watch more. TV is entertainment of the day, so I don't hate on them. But then it is not about food knowledge, it's not about food education. And that's the thing with South African TV shows. And that is why when you keep asking me, why are you not on TV? It's not for lack of trying. There are 2 TV shows that are in the pipeline that are coming in the next year or so. And they have not told me to be something that I am not. And that is the reason why I am linked to them. Watch the space. But having said that, I'm also building my own kitchen in the background. You can't see anything behind me. But in the rooms behind me, there is a lot of equipment that arrived yesterday. I'm building a brand new kitchen that will be purely for my own use. I'm going to be using it for recording, for hosting, for cooking, anything I want. And it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be pretty. It's going to be one of those TV type of kitchens. Building it from scratch. So what I did is I went and got the equipment first because I want the kitchen to be built around that equipment. I want it all to be flawless, seamless, and yeah, it is a lot of work. Yo, I don't know why. I have this habit of taking out a million projects all at once. And as soon as the equipment arrived yesterday, I sat down and I was like, yo, what have I got myself into? But I'll be recording the process of building my own kitchen. I'll be recording the entire thing from nothing to a built-up kitchen. Step by step, I'll be going into the finances of it all. How much it costs. I'm going to be going into the labor of it all, the suppliers, the contractors, all of that. So if you want to go try and do your own, or if you want to get into the industry, or if you want to build a studio of your own for what I want to do, we don't seem to have enough people sharing the knowledge out there. And I honestly don't mind if someone tries to copy what I do. It's their baby because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. So when people say, aren't you worried about competition copying you? No. I live what I live and I know how hard it is. And if it's this hard for me to do it, if someone else goes and copies it, I know they're going to have an even worse time. So I don't really mind sharing this knowledge. On to the second question, my next book. I hope my publisher's not watching this, but knowing Nadia, she probably is. It took about 2 years to write my first book, and that only came out 7 months ago, Dijo. So if you are a cookbook writer, the goal is to stay relevant enough that your next book comes out and your previous book is still relevant. So that is maybe a 2.5 to 3 year gap in between books. Jamie Oliver has a 2 year gap between his books. Um, but he's got a whole team that writes them, and his books are thick. My book was about 270 pages, something like that. 240, I think, 240 something. And with Jamie Oliver, he goes all the way up to 500. So there's no way he's writing all of that himself. Whereas with, yeah, poor old me, I have to do it from scratch. And I want all my writing to be authentic. I don't want it to be like a typical recipe book. I don't want it to be turn-page recipe. There needs to be some relevance to it. There needs to be some authenticity. And the concept for the next one is in my head. I just haven't spoken it out to that many people. And yeah, it's a elaborate one as well. So it's in there. It's coming. I know I need to start it like now, so that it's out in 2 years. But yeah, like I said, I'm overly ambitious. So it'll come. It'll come. Question 3: where do you shop? People always wonder where chefs do their shopping. It's different though. It depends on the type of chef you are. If you work in a hotel, for example, all your stuff is delivered to you. Your suppliers come and bring it to you. You just sign, or your student chef will sign. Suppliers will come to you with new products as well. Ask you to taste. What do you think of this? Do you like it? Okay, we can supply it to you. You get a whole lot of sales people who come as well with samples for you to try out. And that is how it works in hotel and the restaurant world. Whereas if you do what I do, if you're doing recipe development, if you're doing writing of or recipes and creating new dishes, if you are consulting to new businesses, you have to go out and source these things. And what I do is head to farm markets. That is where you find the freshest and the most organic of ingredients, because the farmers tend to grow their own, and because they're small scale, they're not going to use all the crazy chemicals that large scale farmers would do. So their food tends to be a bit more flavorful. The products tend to be a bit more flavorful, and also at the same time you're helping the industry as well develop. So I try to go to food markets. I also go to produce markets like the Joburg produce market. It's called the Joburg market now. That's where all the fresh fruit and veg stores go and get their supplies. It's the biggest fresh produce market in Africa. It is huge. It is, yeah. If you go there, go very early. It opens at 4 o'clock in the morning, and make sure you have time on your hands, because you are going to walk and walk and walk, and make sure you have a list of the things you want. But if you've never been, go there first time without the intention of buying, just to go and see, so that you figure out what it's like. Because I can't explain it. It is that enormous of an environment that you have to physically see it yourself to understand what I mean. You have to walk those passages and those halls to understand what I mean. That is where I do my shopping, because it's the cheapest place. It is a step below the food market. So if food markets are buying there, you can imagine how cheap it must be. So that's where I do my shopping. Other things like if I'm looking for samphire, for example, I know Woolies will have it. You can't find samphire anywhere else. If I'm looking for a certain type of fruit, let's say dragon fruit, for example, I know I'll need to go to Cyril Dean or a China market like that. If I'm looking for an African type of ingredient, like let's say masonja, then I'll go to Bara. If I'm looking for kale, I'll go to a health store. So I'm all over the shop. I don't just shop in one place. And it also helps to move around like that and get to know your suppliers and get their numbers, because sometimes you won't be able to go to them, but they could deliver stuff to you. Okay, that is how I do my shopping. Fourth question: where to study? I get asked this question maybe once every 2 weeks. It's either a family member or it is the actual person who wants to go study. And I honestly get stumped. I studied 10 years ago. That is when I did my diploma, 10 years ago. So I always say to people, honest to God, I'm the last person to ask because the industry has changed a lot in 10 years. I always vouch for the place I studied at. If you're interested, it's Pruleith. Um, they always kick out very qualified and knowledgeable students, and the students they will always get a job in the industry. But having said that, it's not very cheap to get there. Pruleith is not your um, it's not your average school. It is one of the best in the country, but it's also one of the most expensive to go study at. What you get as a diploma and a qualification from Pruleith is worth the amount of money you're going to pay. But then I also know the average South African pocket cannot afford that. So I try to balance my answer with it honestly depends on your pocket. It depends on the level you want to qualify as a chef and your pocket. There's things that you can learn after qualifying in the industry, but then that needs you to be smart about where you decide to apply to work and who you decide to ask to shadow. So I never give a straightforward answer when I'm asked where to study. You can study food literally anywhere, but every place has a different type of qualification. I mean, you can get a degree in food from a university, but then that doesn't mean you can go work in a Michelin star restaurant. You see what I mean? So yeah, I can't answer that question properly. It'll take all day. Fifth question: what's your favorite part of the kitchen? Someone asked me this on Twitter as well during the week, and I said to them, honest to God, when I entered the industry, I chose from the get-go before I even started studying that I don't want to qualify and specialize in any section of the kitchen. So I'm not a pastry chef, I'm not a baker, I'm not a garde manger, I'm not a saucier, I'm not a griller, um, I'm not a cold kitchen chef, which is garde manger by the way. I literally do everything. I can work in every section of a kitchen. And I decided that for myself before I started studying. The goal was to understand the industry as a whole and to understand the chef environment as a whole. And that is why I decided to keep moving. Whenever I'd work in a hotel, my goal would be to work only a year maximum and then move to another establishment. Then I'd work in a restaurant and then move to a lodge and then move to corporate kitchens and then move to catering. So my goal was to learn the industry as I went and learn all the environments within the kitchen as I went so that I could eventually end up where I am now, where I can develop any kind of recipe. I can make a wedding cake, but I can also go make a spitbraai. I can train people on how to make soups and sauces, and then I can jump into salads and making cheese from scratch and making purovos from scratch. I can do it all, and my goal was to learn the industry that way. It's very tough though. It means you have to be a proper nerd, and you have to love reading, you have to love studying, and you also need to be able to be a people's person. Not in terms of being exuberant and what do they call it? An extrovert. It means just being able to speak to someone and understand what they're doing. So approaching a head chef and saying, "Can I just watch what you're doing in this section for today? It's my day off, but can I be a ghost in the kitchen and watch what you're doing?" So that you can suck up as much knowledge as you can. That is what I did. So to answer question 5, what's your favorite part of the kitchen? I don't have one. Have you tasted everything in the world? No, I don't think anyone will ever be able to say they've tasted everything. But I have been able and been lucky enough to taste the majority of things from various countries in the world. That was a nice thing of studying where I studied. It was a global qualification. So we had to learn food from all over the world, and they would fly in caviar, proper caviar. They would fly in proper foie gras, every exotic ingredient they would try and bring in for us to sample and for us to learn how to cook. So I was lucky enough to do that. And on my travels as well, I do what Anthony Bourdain used to do. Just go somewhere and go with an open mind and taste everything. Even if they tell you this thing is made by something that you'd never eat, Um, yeah, go there and taste it. And make that decision after you've tasted the one time. So I have an open mind to that. I will try everything once. I haven't tasted everything in the world, but the goal is to try and sample as many things as possible. Do I eat everything? Now that question though. So here I've tasted everything, but then do I eat it again? And the answer is no, I don't eat everything. One thing that I refuse to eat again is oysters. I hate oysters. I don't understand why do you eat oysters if you eat oysters? I mean, the thing is alive. It's literally from the ocean. Have you seen how nasty the ocean is? Firstly, so you're not cooking it. You're opening its poor shell. The thing is there, all slimy. You're going to add Tabasco and lemon juice and shove it down your throat. Why? I honestly do not get why people eat raw oysters. I cook them. Oysters Rockefeller, or I ceviche them, or do something with them, but I will not eat oysters raw again. I last did it, I think was it December, when I was in Cape Town. A friend of mine, Marcia, and she always rips me off now. And yeah, no, I don't do oysters, for example. Even though in my cookbook I have my sonja, I honestly don't eat them though. And it's not because I'm squeamish about it, it's just I don't like the taste of them. They've got a very strong taste. I have nothing against them besides that. The other thing I don't eat would be tinned pilchards. Yeah, I'm not going to mention the name of the brand because I'm going to be marketing them if I do, but I'm sure some of you all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, tinned pilchards. I had too many of them as a kid, and yo, that you burp the thing the whole day. I don't know why. Okay, so yeah, I've answered that one. I do not eat everything. Question number 8: the future of food. The future of food. The next food trend, I would say, is African cuisine. I know African cuisine is broad as a term because African cuisine is a lot. It's like saying South African cuisine. There's a lot within South African cuisine on its own. But unfortunately, the rest of the world sees Africa as one. They see Africa as a singular collective, and they do not try and break it up into Ethiopian cuisine, Somalian, Nigerian, Cameroonian. They do not do that. Unfortunately, that is how they see us. So when I say African cuisine, I'm thinking on a global scale. That is the next frontier. We're going to start seeing more Ethiopian restaurants around the world. We're going to start seeing more Kenyan themed restaurants, more South African themed restaurants. And that is purely because there's nothing else left in the world to commercialize except us now. And Brazilian cuisine. The rest of the world is commercial. If you think about it, Japanese food has been done, Thai food has been done, Vietnamese food has been done, Filipino food has been done, Mexican food. I could rattle them all off. They've all been done. And humans are always trying to, okay, what's the next thing? What flavors have I not tried before? And that is just going to be African cuisine. And that is why I am big on it being African chefs who push it to the world, instead of what happened before, where it was foreigners who came to Africa and South Africa and all these other countries within Africa, and they would go to a so-called restaurant, and they'll think that food is what the locals ate, which is not it's not the truth. Locals don't go eat at those restaurants. Those restaurants are designed for foreigners who come in here. So with it being locals who go and push it to the world, we'll be able to give them the authentic cuisine. And that is my view on it. Yeah, there's a whole other topic on its own. I could go on and on for hours, so let me leave it there. Who do you admire? Who do I admire? Unfortunately, he passed away. And I'm sad because it's become a recent obsession. I liked him before, and then he went and he killed himself, and then now I'm like literally obsessed with the guy. Anthony Bourdain. Yeah. Out of everyone in the chef world, I would say he'd be the one that I admire the most. I won't say I've modeled my view on food and my personality around what he does. I'm my own person, but I am trying to be as frank and as blunt and as forthright as he is or he was. Trying to schmooze up and to be nice to people purely because you want your industry or you want your career to flourish. It's not something I do. I think if you're talented enough and if you're good enough at what you do, you will be noticed anyway. You don't have to suck up. You don't have to be all pretty. You don't have to make up yourself. You don't have to act all dramatic. If what you're doing is authentic enough, people will eventually warm up to it. I mean, it's taken me 10 years to get to where I am now. And I've always been who I am. I haven't tried to be anyone else. I haven't tried to copy anyone else's concepts. I haven't tried to do anything that anyone else was doing. I literally just did things that I wanted to do, and I did them the way I want them. And it's eventually only starting to pay dividends now. So I love Anthony Bourdain because of that. That's how he approached his career and his life as well. He was blunt about everything. He was frank about everything. He didn't hold back about anything. And that is what I liked about him. What is the last question? Question 10. Are you... I can't read my own handwriting. I can't read question 10. Is my handwriting that bad? My mom used to say I write like I'm writing with my left foot. And yeah, sometimes... Okay, I'm defeated. I can't read question 10 because I can't see what it says. But yeah, those are the 10 questions for now. Since we last talked, well, this was the last tattoo I added. This was my mom's name. I did this in Cape Town when I was down there for Woordfeest. No, it wasn't Woordfeest. It was for... Yeah, it was. I was down there for Woordfeest, and then I went and got tattoos. And this one I did 2 weeks ago in Soweto. This is a baobab tree. Baobab tree is symbolic because my roots are in Limpopo. Even though I always rep Soweto, I always talk about Soweto. My dad is a Mupedi. He is from Muleji in Limpopo. And that is where our family roots are. Our ancestral burial grounds are also there. We went there 2 years ago, and there are tombstones from the 1800s there. So the baobab tree is just, homage to where we originate from. And a guy at a car rental last week was returning a car, and he was like, where are you from? And I looked at him, I was like, why? Then he looked at my arm and said, I have that tree in my backyard at home. Yeah, I was like, but it's a baobab tree, how do you have it in your backyard? Then he told me he's from Limpopo. So people from Limpopo keep recognizing the baobab tree, which is a good thing because that's the whole goal. The tree is it's a symbol, but it's also, it's got a lot attached to it. If I was to get all deep and stuff. But I'm slowly getting covered in tattoos. And you know what? I told myself I'll stop adding tattoos. Now I've given up. I've just accepted that there's going to be more and more. So you might actually see another one next time. I record another video. Chefs and tattoos, yeah? It is our problem, that thing. But there's also another reason why some chefs, you'll notice here, a lot of chefs have tattoos here. It's because of the burn marks. So a lot of chefs go get tatted up just to hide the burn marks. That is part of the reason why. And there's some thinking behind it. But anyway, 10 questions to Les the Chef. You can ask me anything on social media. I'll write it down and I'll eventually try and answer it.